Welcome, everybody. Thank you guys so much for joining us today. I'm really excited about our host today. I'm going to give it a quick couple seconds while we have people loading in. I know that we have a really large audience, and that's no surprise to me when we have a guest like we have today. It tends to have the masses come in because they don't want to miss out on hearing Tom speak. So with that, I'll do some quick housekeeping. Questions. We want this to be something that is valuable to you. We want you guys to be able to ask questions and engage. We do have a chat and a Q&A that you're going to see on the right side of your screen. Some of you guys may have to click a little red chat box in order to see that. So if you guys have questions, ask them in real time. There's a Q&A option. Put that question in there, and then we're going to have a section of Q&A that we're going to go through and answer all those questions as you guys have them. So please make sure to pop that in here. We want everybody taking everything out of this as much as they possibly can. So quick introduction of myself. Most of you guys know me. My name is Deanna Haas. I am the SVP of Growth for Sold.com. We are excited to be able to have a very important, very special guest with us who really doesn't need any sort of an introduction, but I'm going to go ahead and do it anyway. He is ranked as the #1 real estate educator by Swain Poll Power 200. He's the best-selling author, and if you don't own these books, I highly recommend that you do, of Life by Design and Mindset and Model and Marketing, or Mindset, Model, and Marketing, sorry. With over 70,000 hours of coaching experience, Tom Ferry dedicates himself to really helping agents and brokers master their craft, but also balance their business as well as their personal lives. So without further ado, please help me introduce and welcome Tom Ferry.
Hey, thank you so much, Deanna, and happy November, everybody. I've got a bunch of stuff that I want to share with you, and I hope that today you find yourself in the right mindset, ready to learn, ready to grow, and most importantly, ready to move forward, because I think today there's 56 days left before January, 56 days left between now and the end of the year, and so much can be accomplished. And by the way, if you're sitting here right now and you don't have a pipeline of opportunity for buyers and sellers that want to transact with you in the first quarter, this is a really important show for you. If you've got a large pipeline and you've got an overwhelming number of opportunities in the first quarter, this is also going to be important because there's just a lot changing right now. So with that said, I'm going to switch over to my PowerPoint, and I'm going to make sure that Deanna and the team have everything that I'm about to share with you here. So, again, my big, shout out to Deanna and the team at Sold.com. This is a great partnership. My slides are a little slow on my end, so hopefully it's okay on your end. But this is just a little moment when I think about mindset. That is a photo of my dad, who's a legend in the space, celebrating 50 years. My older son, Michael, who works at Fidelity, the title company, and my younger son, Steven, there, who now sells real estate in Hoboken, New Jersey. So truly a family affair. Lots of reasons to have the right mindset and be grateful. Speaking of, with what happened yesterday, my phone has been blowing up since late last night from agents all over the country, all over the world. One of my dear friends who owns Remax of Europe texting like, what does it all mean? And my response is, it doesn't really matter who the next president is. And I want to remind you, staying in action is the solution. I jokingly say to people, I made money under Clinton, under Bush, under Obama, under Trump, under Biden. It doesn't make a difference. If you do the right things, you will always be successful. So my little note for you is action absorbs anxiety, meaning when you're in action, there's no room for anxiety, for stress, for tension. There's only one thing, and that is being of service and helping customers. I hope that's the mindset you're in. Now, I'm also going to tell you that while we're here today for, call it 45 minutes while I'm presenting, and then we'll do some Q&A, what I really hope is that you make some decisions. What I really hope is that you level up your level of commitment towards what it is you want to accomplish in 2025. And most importantly, that you stay in action. Action absorbs anxiety. And one of my other favorite quotes is, action solves everything. Now, as she mentioned, Deanna mentioned, if you got questions, feel free to pop them inside the chat or into the questions. I'm not going to look at them until I'm done. It'll just be too distracting. But I want to acknowledge you. Starting in September of 2023, I started to acknowledge the obstacles that we were going to face in 2024 in every live audience, all my coaching sessions. And basically what I said to everybody was, be clear. You got 4 things that are more than likely going to slow transaction count in 2024. And we've seen all these, the election cycle, how that slowed people down, interest rates, pent-up demand, lack of inventory. All of these things have been a factor, and yet here you are. So I really want to say congratulations. And I want to say to you, it's time for you and I to now look at, what do we know post-election? What happens? What happens post-election? And you, of course, I'll get all these slides to Deanna. She can get them out to you. You might want to take some screenshots as we progress through this. But the first thing that we know is when you look back over the last 11, now 12 presidential elections, 9 of the last 11, the number of transactions the following year went up. And right now, the current expectation, if you look at this slide, is this is new construction and resale. So call it 3.9 million resale units, the lowest in 14 years. But next year, it looks like we're going to get a 12.5% lift on transactions. So you can start thinking like, I'm going to do 12.5% more transactions no matter what, but I hope you have a higher goal. The next thing I want you to be mindful of is, we know that 7 of the last 8 presidential elections, and knock on wood, we hope the same thing happens again in 2025, that home price appreciation increased after 7 of the last 8 presidential election cycles. And what we see now in the forecast for 2025, it looks like, depending upon if you're talking to Goldman Sachs or MBA or NAR, a median of 2.5% appreciation. Now, you and I both know 2.5% is the national number. I know where I live in Dallas or in Orange County, California, I'm going to see a different rate of appreciation along the coast. I'm going to see a different rate of appreciation in Dallas because of how many people are moving into the state. You know your local marketplaces, but no matter what, these first 2 data points should have you very bullish about your goals for 2025. The next one is, we know that interest rates leading up to a presidential election have dropped 8 of the last presidential elections. And I was joking with the pal this morning. He's like, you shared that stat with me. I'm like, hey, they went from 8 to 7.12. They got as low as we saw in the 6s. But what do we know? If you look at what everyone is saying about rates next year, regardless of Jerome Powell, who I refer to as the Night King, that only makes sense if you saw, Game of Thrones. I call him the Night King. Regardless of the Night King, here is the expectations. If you talk to, Fannie, you talk to MBA, you talk to Wells Fargo, you talk to NAR, everybody's saying the same exact thing, that we're going to see rates in the 6s in the first quarter of 2025. Knock on wood, we hope it's sooner. Rates in the 6s. And they're saying we could see rates as low as 5.9 by the second quarter. And if that happens in the spring market, the wheels are going to come off and you're going to make a fortune if you're doing the right stuff. Now, the way I view it, and this is probably a slide that you should have hanging on your wall, is you've got 3 positive converging forces that are coming into play in 2025. Lowering rates, available inventory, and buyer demand is through the roof. You know it, and I know it. Now, there's 3 really important numbers I think you need to be thinking about as you sort of venture out into the next 56 days and then through all of 2025. The first of those 3 numbers is this: 12.5%. The expectation is 12.5% more listings sold in 2025 than we had in 2024. So that means 1 million more transactions, buy side, sell side combined, for you to absorb, for you to take on. So that's the first thing, 12.5% more transactions. The second one, and I'll show you some data around this. If I asked you right now, and I don't want you to do it and be distracted, but if I asked you to grab your phone or your CRM and just look at how many contacts you have in your phone, here's what all of our data is telling us. You have between 6 and 8%. I don't know why, Brandon, they don't just call it 7%, but it's, between 6 and 8% of every single person in your phone is going to put their home on the market in the next 12 months. 6 to 8% of the people in your phone are going to put their home on the market in the next 12 months. We got to pay attention to that. We got to communicate aggressively. We got to be in front of every single person in our database. Getting ahead of myself. Now, the next one I want you to be aware of is a set of numbers that as someone that is, I get the phone call from my guy, Aaron Kerman of Beverly Hills, who's done $1 billion in sales. And he's like, I'm a little bit off. I need a tune up. Or Maxine Gellens in La Jolla, California, who's 86 years old, who I've had the good fortune to coach and work with now for almost 25 years. It doesn't matter if they're a brand new agent, a luxury agent, someone in, Manitoba, Canada, or Munich, Germany. It doesn't make a difference. If I could wave a magic wand to get you to take care of one discipline every day, it'd be this discipline. And that is to talk to 5 people every day that are in your phone that already know you, like you, and trust you. 5 people from your phone every day. Then I want 5 new people every day. And you'll see at the very end, as we look at the sales cycle, how long it's taking before people actually transact, I want 4 follow-up discussions every single day. So let me go through it again. We're going to have a 12.5% lift in transactions. That's good news. The bad news is 6 to 8% of the people in your phone are going to put their home on the market. And if you're not marketing to them, someone else is going to. Someone else is going to get that listing that should have been yours. The third one is how we're going to solve it. 5 past client sphere of influence conversations every day, 240 days out of the year, just like breathing, just like showering, 5 past client conversations every day, then 5 new conversations because the pool of people that you don't know is infinitely bigger, and 4 follow-up discussions every single day. Now, my friends at Sold asked me to talk about a lot of stuff today, but I want to share with you what I believe is the biggest threat. The biggest reason why the vast majority of people don't earn the money that they deserve in a business that will pay out $120 billion in commissions in the US in 2025. Like there's no shortage of opportunity, my friends. But here's the first big threat that I see is when your pipeline is low, when you don't have a lot of lead flow, when you don't do all the marketing, what happens? You get desperate and you start marketing and doing sales calls. You start doing that like crazy. And guess what? Every time you do, it works. And eventually the pipeline begins to build and you start to close transactions and now you're making money. Yay, here we go. On the flip side, if you're sitting here right now with a big pipeline of opportunity, with lots of people you've been talking to that want to put their home on the market after the election or in the new year or in the spring market, you've got to be feeling pretty bullish. But what I know is if you've got 2 or 3 escrows, you've got 4 or 5 active listings, you've got all these people you're talking to about doing something in the future, what we know after 500,000 hours of coaching in my business, 75,000 hours for myself personally, is the one thing that you stop doing when you go into client care mode is you stop your marketing and your lead generation. And when you do this and you close out all that business, what happens every time? Your revenue begins to drop. Your revenue begins to drop. So what we end up with is what I call the vicious cycle. So as you're thinking about 2025, you're thinking about the next 56 days, you're thinking about how you want this business to be after 1 year, 30 years in the business. What we want to remove is the vicious cycle. We want to remove, I'm poor, I'm rich, I'm poor, I'm rich. This is so easy. I'm doing so great. Oh my goodness, I'm dying again. What the hell's going on? Look, I'm so good. Oh no, I'm not. Like that vicious cycle that I know if I opened up the chat and said, who's been there before? 100% of you would say, yes, I have been there before. So let's go back to my numbers. 12.5% lift in transactions, right? Prices go up, rates come down, transaction count goes up. 6 to 8% of the people in your phone are going to transact. 6 to 8% of the people in your database are going to transact. And I'm saying to you, I'm making the argument, if you want to kill the vicious circle, 5 conversations a day with people that know, like, and trust you, 5 new conversations, 4 follow-up to deal with the long sales cycle, and you can kill the cycle and make the money that you want. Now, the bottom line is, with 56 days, you're only going to be in one of 2 camps, right? And you can see the slide here. It's the people that say, I'll do it all later, and the small percentage of people that are saying, I've got 56 days. I've got a ton of time, even with Thanksgiving, if you're in the US, and Christmas or Hanukkah, like I've got a ton of time. And by the way, if I don't do it, what happens? What happens if you don't do the marketing? What happens if you don't make the calls? Don't send the emails. Don't do all the things you know to do between now and the end of the year. You start the year at the bottom of that vicious cycle, and now you got to climb like crazy. And it is a creates a lot of anxiety unnecessarily. So I hope you're thinking about making the right choices between now and the end of the year. Now, in the spirit of sold.com and the work that I've done with them for years, one of the things I wanted to share with you is some insight around who's controlling the listing inventory. So I did a exhaustive research piece from January to the end of July, only looking at the listings sold, not looking at listings pending, just listings sold, not looking at buy side, just looking at listings sold. And I think you'll be shocked to see that at the time that I did this study, 1,111,200 agents had 0 listings sold in the first 7 months. Now you could say, Tom, I'm on a team, my husband and wife, my son's in the business with me. We put all the listings under their MLS ID. And I say, great. So let's change it to 950,000. So 950,000 people, essentially almost two thirds of all the agents in the US had 0 listings sell in the first 7 months. That is a frightening number. Now, very quickly, if you pay attention and you see 14% of the agents, right, essentially listed between and had sell 1 to 4 closed. We had 6% of the agents had between 5 and 10 listings sold and closed in the first 7 months. We had 2% of the agents have 11 to 20 listings closed in the first 7 months. Those are good agents. We also had 0.5% do 21 to 30 listings sold and closed in the first 7 months. And this is where it really gets interesting. 0.17%, that's a tenth or almost 0.2%, had 31 to 44 listings sold and closed. A small little group of 2,579 agents out of 1.55 million. But wait, there's more. We had 0.14%, 2,134 agents have more than 45 listings sold and closed in the first 7 months of this year. Now, I don't know about you, but when I look at that graph, I think to myself, where do I want to be in 2025? So if I was sitting with you one-on-one, I would ask you, where do you want to be? Like, where are you going to be in the 0 category? No, you wouldn't be on this webinar if that was the case, right? Do you want to be a part of the group that in the first 7 months had an average of 2.7, which means, they probably had 4 or 5 buyer sales also. These are good agents, that 215,000. Or do you find yourself saying, man, these people had 14 listings sell in the first 7 months that closed? That put them on track to do like 22-ish listings sold plus their buy side. That's a really good agent. Where do you want to be? 6 to 8% of the people in your phone are going to put their home on the market. We're going to get a 12.5% lift. If you're talking to people that already know you, like you, and trust you, talking to new people and doing your follow-up, you can be anywhere on this list that you decide if you're willing to kill the vicious cycle of this. Constantly being like this, oh, I got to market and prospect like crazy. Oh, I stopped doing all that. And then I'm broke again and I started over again. We do not want to be that person. Now, what I know is this, and I'm sure you're looking at the same stat, 22.7% of the agents essentially control the listing sold market. So I read these books. I'm sure you read them. Maybe you read them with your kids. Like, it truly is the real estate Hunger Games. It is the rich and it is the rest. And the question then becomes like, what are some of the fundamental problems that I'm going to have to overcome or solve in order to make sure that I close the loop and I win more and more of these listings? So I did a research piece with a company called Revaluate. You see it there, Tom Ferry and Revaluate. I don't own this company. I'm not an investor in this company, but I love these guys because what they do is they'll take someone like you, their database, and they will essentially grade it. And the first part of the grading is they'll say, you gave us your database. And again, they do this all day long for brokers and companies and agents all over the world. So it's, oh my God, give them a database? No, they run it through a process to say, what percentage do you not have an address for? How do you have somebody in your database with no address, which means you can't mail to them? Or worse, I've got them in my database, but I don't have an email address, which means I can't do the lowest cost, most effective marketing on earth, email marketing. Or worse, you can see the numbers, 70,000 people with no phone number. So the first thing they do is they grade the database based upon, let's call it data integrity. But then we took it one step further. And I asked, Of the 8 agents with these 500,000 contacts, 4 really large teams, and then 4 individual producers, how much business did they lose? So they actually go into the MLS and the tax records and they tell you, and I know you're looking at those numbers, they can only pull this up on the 250,000 mailing addresses, which is half of the people in your database that don't have a mailing address. We don't know if they transacted because we have no address to show movability. But in this case, of the 250,000 that they had mailing addresses, those 8 agents and teams lost 5,161 listings, meaning they actually got a report that said, Brandon listed his house with Tom Ferry at Banana Real Estate, and you didn't get it because they were in your database. It literally shows you the agent that got the listing and sold it, the volume they did, and the gross commission income that you missed out on. And you could see these 8, 4 monster teams and 4 like regular producers with like 5,000 people in their phone. Literally, guess what they discovered? The average person, they lost $2.57 billion in volume. Divide that by 8 people. They lost $50 to $70 million in commissions that they lost because 6 to 8% of the people in your phone are going to move. And that's what happened in the last 12 months. And it's going to happen again in the next 12 months. Now, I don't know if you guys want to hit that. If you hit that QR code, they do this for free. Again, I don't own the company. I'm not an investor, but it's such a valuable service for you to get a grade on your database and to find out who inside your database with a mailing address has already listed and sold with somebody else. Oh, it's painful, but you're going to want to do it. Now, so again, 6 to 8%. You're super clear on that. The question then becomes is if you captured the 6 to 8%, if you actually captured all the 6 to 8%, which by the way, no one does, no one does, but you should look at it like, I've got 1,000 customers. I'm making this up in my CRM, 1,000 people in my CRM. However, it doesn't matter. Whatever the number is, just 1,000 for easy math. That means I've got 60 to 80 listings that are going to happen in the next 12 months in my phone, 60 to 80. Now, I don't think you're going to get 100%, right? We're always going to be out bonded. We're going to meet somebody on the pickleball court. We're having a glass of wine and they're like, oh my God, I'm an agent. Oh, we're thinking about selling. And, we lose, right? Like the notion that you would capture 100% is silly. The notion that every person in your database potentially isn't in another agent's database is silly, right? Like you and I both know that. But if you did capture 6 to 8%, how many listings are we talking about? That's the question you need to be asking yourself as you think about 2025. Now, the bigger problem, as I see it, the bigger problem is the vast majority of people watching. Maybe you just don't have enough contacts. You don't have enough people in your phone. You don't have enough people in whatever CRM you're using. And if that's the case, then I have to really get honest about if I want more listings, if I want more success, I probably got to add 1, 2, or 3 new lead sources. And I'm going to make the claim, not just because it's sold.com, that you don't need more buyer leads. The only thing we need is listing opportunities. So I published, here's a list of all the things that my clients are doing. Niche geographic farmers to, maybe seniors and boomers with 2-story houses. Like that's a great marketing list. Circle dialing around recent sales. We know that works. Agent referrals. We know that works. Google advertising or Google local services ads. If you're doing it right and you got lots of reviews there, it's an enormous opportunity. Obviously your database, social through video, YouTube, Instagram, etc., geographic farming, mega open houses. But at the end of the day, arbitraging sellers. And the reality is, my friends, like sold.com has kind of figured that one out. Now, I'm going to tell you, I'm going to go back to this and say, if you don't have enough contacts in your phone, if you have like 100 or 200 or 500, you don't have enough people, right? What we need to supplement, like taking supplements, we need to supplement more opportunities. And whether, again, it's sold.com or you're going to do YouTube advertising or you're going to do a niche geographic farm, I would challenge you to pick 1, 2, or 3 and dive deep. Pick 1, 2, or 3 and dive deep to make sure you're putting yourself in the best possible position with the right number of people you could be working, nurturing, and building relationships with. So, Sold has an unbelievable guarantee. Like if you just If you haven't, I'm sure you're probably already a client of Sold. If you're not, if you're one of the, 5 people that are guests, I strongly recommend you just look at what they're offering. You look at the way that they're generating these clients. It's very, dare I say, middle to bottom of the funnel versus like Facebook ads. Anybody will click on, curious about the value of my house, right? Sure, I'll click on that. But the data shows that those people convert in like 2 years, sometimes 3 years. I've got clients that convert those from 7 years ago. When you look at Sold and others, it's more middle, bottom of the funnel, because I always ask myself, who in their right mind fills out all their contact information unless they actually want to talk to an agent? So again, highly recommend you talk to sold.com as a wonderful solution. And you see, like, we have so many of our coaching clients that are using this solution just, again, as a way to supplement their database and get another form of seller opportunities. Now, with that said, we got to talk about conversion. So I mentioned earlier 554, and the 4, if you follow me on Instagram, if you don't follow me on Instagram, follow me on Instagram at Tom Ferry. And what I want you to do, I'm actually going to look at my phone real fast here. I want you to go to my page. And if you scroll down maybe 2 or 3 thumb movements, you're going to find a video that looks like that. And that's actually me making calls in Hoboken, New Jersey with my son, Steven, who's an agent on the Jill Biggs sales team. And what I was sharing with him that day was, give me old leads. I will call old leads, because what I know is right now it's anywhere between 118 to as high as 180 days from the time someone tells you they're going to transact to the time that they actually transact, which is why I say 5 new conversations a day, 5 existing customer conversations a day, and 4 follow-up. If you're not doing the follow-up, you're going to lose more opportunities than you gain. I'll give you an example, and I'll just put this up real fast so you can take a peek. We did an exhaustive research piece with one of my clients who uses Boomtown now, whatever they're called, Bold, great solution, great CRM. We looked at the number of people in the last 12 months that converted with us from online leads, things like sold.com. What we found was 8% did it in 30 days or less. They were like, we need to move, let's go. 2/3 of them, 27% did it in 2 to 3 months, 27% in months 2 and 3. You can see 33%, 4 to 6 months, but look at that 7 to 12 month mark. 22% of their clients transacted in months 7 through 12. And again, 12 months out, 10%. They actually celebrate inside of this team. It's DJ and Lindsay from Jacksonville, Florida. They celebrate every time they convert a lead of someone that they generated 6 months ago, 9 months ago, a year ago, 2 years ago, 5 years ago, 7 years ago. They celebrate it because that means that they've figured out the most important thing, which is our job is to follow up until they do something. Period. End of story. Now, the scary part of the data and the research we did across a wide variety of teams is right there, that most people quit after about 30 days. They get busy, they go back to their roller coaster, they got a deal, they got to work on that escrow, and they start that vicious cycle over and over again. If you want some deeper dive data, you'll love this slide. Timeline and effort to convert leads is way longer and loftier than most individual agents think. 115 days was the median in this slide. And you can see here, we took HAR, HomeLight, Market VIP, OpCity, Realtor.com, veterans, everything was taking about 115 days on average for us to close. I took it one step further, and I actually said to a couple team leaders, this was Jamie McMartin in Houston, Texas. I said, can we do a little analysis, kind of like the reevaluate analysis? I want to look at how many leads you guys generated. In this case, we're looking at just one tranche of leads. That's the part where it says leads, and it goes all the way down to 4416. So in one 90-day period, they generated 4,416 leads from open houses, online, everything you can imagine. Big team, right? And from that, they sold 91 houses, right? So, let's call it 2.1% conversion. It's not bad. It's not the worst I've seen, but it's also not the best that I've seen. The best I've seen is closer to 13 and 14% conversion in that same 1 year period. But Look over to the next one, the one that says missed. This was the hard part for people. When they discovered that the vast majority of the leads, someone on the team said these leads are crappy, so they put it into the bucket called Alex, that's the team leader. And that group, you can see 184 transactions were done. 184 transactions from the ones that the salespeople said these are bad leads. 419 was the total lost by salesperson because they didn't follow up. They would have had 10% conversion. They settled for 2.1. Now, here's the question. If you're going to do online leads, if you're going to take on any seller lead today, the typical seller lead, they start thinking about selling 18 months out, right? That's your mom, that's your friend, that's your neighbor, and that's a lead from sold.com. They're 18 months. They're like, yeah, we're thinking if when the kids are finally, or the school system, or the job transfer, or we want to retire, whatever it may be, it's this 18-month cycle. We've got to find them in that 18-month cycle, and we've got to follow up until they transact, or we will lose them. So it begs the question for you, what's your long-term follow-up strategy? What's your long-term follow-up strategy? Now, I'm going to show you something. You're going to get a copy of this. It is not a math equation, but it is by one of my clients, Mickey. She produces on average about 22% conversion of seller online leads and buyer online leads. She is one of the best at making sure that basically, if this happens, we do this. And if they don't do this, then we do that. And if they do this, then we do that. And she just has a process. It's maniacal, as you can see here. And again, it's even hard for me to see a little bit. So when you get a copy of this, you're probably just going to take this, put it into ChatGPT and say, turn this into a checklist for me. Turn this into a checklist for me, and ChatGPT will do it for you in 2 seconds. And now you can just read it thematically and see exactly what her process is. Now, this is my favorite slide. How do we simplify what my great client Mickey said? The answer is real simple. If it's not in your schedule, it doesn't exist. And if you're thinking about going back to what I said to you earlier, 12.5% lift in transactions, 6 to 8% of the people in your phone are going to transact. And we know 5 conversations a day with people in your database, 5 new conversations and 4 follow-up. If I don't see it in your schedule, it doesn't exist. If I don't see it in your schedule, it does not exist. It's got to be in your schedule, or you simply will not follow through. Think about it. Think about it. I started this by saying we got to make some good decisions. We got to make some commitments, and we got to take the right action, not just over the next 56 days, but throughout all of 2025. So ask yourself, what does your schedule look like? How does it compare to that? And whether you're talking about just your database or your database and online leads, your database, online leads, and open house leads, it doesn't matter what the source is. If it's not built into your schedule and not built into your disciplines, you will simply fail, and you'll find yourself maybe in 12 months going, yeah, I'm going to do that reevaluate thing. And, sending them all your data. And all of a sudden they realize, oh, wow, you actually, every one listing you got, you lost 5. Like that happens all the time to people. I want you to close the loop, but I can't do it for you. You have to decide, is it worth the extra effort? Is it worth the dedication? Is it worth the commitment? Is it worth it? Yes or no? Only you can decide. Now, my question there is, of course, what's your commitment? But being mindful of time, Deanna, why don't we do, actually, you know what, Deanna, I'm going to tell a little story and then let's do a little Q&A. This actually fits nicely.
Perfect.
So Deanna, did you ever see the very famous HBO show called Band of Brothers?
I did.
So what if I told you, sitting right there in the middle, that's my Uncle Frank Maniscalco, Boston native, who when World War II hit, right, when the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor and Americans went like this, we're going to war. He and my father-in-law and, pretty much the 36 guys that they all knew from where they lived in kind of, like South Boston, they all said, okay, we're going to go down and we're going to sign up. So imagine my father-in-law, Tony, he walks right over and just goes, Navy, let's go, $100 a month. And there was Army, $100 a month. And my Uncle Frank looks over and it says, paratrooper, $125. And he's like, $125 a month. He's like, and he steps over into that line having absolutely no idea what he was committing to. Long story short, D-Day hits. He is in an airplane with a bunch of his buddies, and they are flying to paratroop in. And if you can imagine the way he described the story, and I'm the only one in the family that ever got him to open up and actually tell the story. Not Addie, his wife didn't hear it. Like I was so blown away. It was just one night sitting in Newport Beach, and I'm like, Uncle Frank, you want a glass of wine? Sure. And he was probably at the time, he had to be maybe 81. And we're sipping on a little wine and we're just talking. And I'm like, so what was that experience like? And he opens up and starts telling the story of his plane being riddled with bullets. And I mean, just the thought of it is so horrific. You know, people around him that he went through basic with, that he went through all the training with, that are dying left and right. And literally the pilot's like, you guys got to jump and you got to jump now. And he was the only guy that made it out of the airplane before it blew up.
Wow.
He said, I landed, and he said, I didn't know when I landed even where I was. He said, and honestly, Tom, I was so afraid that for 24 straight hours, I just laid there, just, you know, kind of in some shrubs, and you could hear bullets. He goes, I knew I was close, but I know I wasn't close enough. And he said, and it hit me like, I got to get up. I got to move. I got to, you know, so he waits until it gets dark and he does what every GI does. He goes, click, click with this little clicker, and he hears not but, you know, 40 yards away, click, click. So they climb over together, and now he's got a buddy, and they start marching together. And again, it's nighttime. They're like crawling on the ground, click, click. They find another. They end up going 8 miles. They were 8 miles behind enemy lines. He went through Market Garden, Battle of the Bulge. He marched all the way into Germany. And what's fascinating, this photo was taken the day before he turned 100. The day before, September 30th. And I took my 2 boys and we went and saw Uncle Frank. And Deanna, he passed away 2 days before his 101st birthday. He was the last survivor of the 101st Airborne Division, the 506, the Band of Brothers. If you saw that show, like he was in that group. So if you saw that, that's what my Uncle Frank went through for $25 extra a month. Now, all I'm asking you to do is call your database, is buy some online leads, follow up and nurture like crazy. That's all I'm asking you to do. This guy put his life on the line for $25 when you could make $25,000 a week for doing the work. Do you guys get the point?
Yeah, it's amazing perspective.
It is. I think about him all the time, and you could see there, you know, he's like, well, I can only put so many Purple Hearts inside there. So I kept that in a separate case. And you can't see it, but below that one of those medals, you actually see the shrapnel that went through his leg. And instead of stopping when he could have gone back to Boston to be with his wife, he said, no. I got to keep going. I can't quit now. I got to keep moving forward. I know if my Uncle Frank was here and he was talking to you, my friend, as an agent, he'd be like, get off your butt and do your job. There's a lot of people out there that need you, and no one cares about your excuses. Said with love and empathy, no one cares. Does that make sense? So Deanna, now that I might have made somebody a little bit angry, you know I love you. I'm just keeping it real. Let's do a little Q&A. What do we got?
Yeah, definitely. I'm going to pull up the Q&A that we have from our agents too. But I have a question for you, because I think you touched a lot on, I mean, this last point alone was do the work. Like it's not hard to be successful. It really just takes commitment. We've been really fortunate to partner with you guys in a major way, where we've actually had one of your coaches every single month come on and speak to our network of agents. And so every time everybody's brought in valuable information, and the takeaway that I always have is commitment. Like you just have to commit to a process. And so I think, you know, for sold.com, you've kind of talked about it. We work with top of funnel sellers. So what's kind of your biggest piece of advice for people as they're talking to a top of funnel seller who may be just in the I'm just curious phase, or is pretending like they don't have interest right now? What's the best way to keep trucking through, knowing that that person very likely is going to sell in the next 12 to 18 months?
So I would say to you a combination of understanding modality, that I myself have been online looking for a snowboard, typed in my information, even had a chat with somebody live, right? Like, yeah, I kind of want this board and I need, this size and these bindings and la, la, la. And then I bounce from it, but I'm in that modality of I want to buy a snowboard. So then when I go and have to pick up my kids from school, or I've got to go back to work, or I'm doing whatever I'm doing, I'm out of that modality. So then when they call me, I'm no longer thinking about the snowboard. And it's the same exact thing that causes the vast majority of agents to go, oh, these leads suck, click. Instead of realizing they were in this modality, they filled out the information. So we know the intent is there. But when I get them on the phone, don't be shocked if they're not like, wow, I've been waiting for your call. No. So I always say the second thing is you got to know what to say that reactivates them. So Deanna, my all-time favorite script is, I know you weren't expecting my call. I know you weren't expecting my call, but I saw the other day you filled out some information inquiring about the possibility of taking advantage of this market and maybe selling your home. And I wanted to reach out to see what questions you might have. Something as soft and simple as that. I know you're not expecting my call. A few days ago, you had filled out a form online saying you were interested in knowing the value of your home or what you could possibly sell it for. And I wanted to reach out as the local expert here in city to let you know I can answer any questions you have. I can even set up a private preview of the property to see, what conditions it's in, but I'm getting ahead of myself. How can I help? What are you thinking about? And I think if you have to remind them when you're calling an online lead, and the truth is you got to remind your own friends, hey, over a glass of wine 2 weeks ago, you said you were interested. No, you're like, look, I know you're not expecting my call, but I saw that a couple of days ago, you filled out a form, you gave us your cell phone, you were interested in finding out about what you could sell your home for. And as the local representative here, I wanted to reach out to make sure that you get all the questions you have answered, that you understand what's happening with pricing, you understand what's happening with buyer demand, but I'm getting ahead of myself. How can I help? What's going on? Yeah. And then be okay with in that moment that they're like, yeah, I was actually drinking when I did that. And we're not thinking about selling, or I was in an argument with my spouse, right? Because it's all that stuff. But the second part, or the third part, I guess I would say to you, so understand modality, understand language. The third thing is, guess what? Deanna, have you ever walked into a department store? You're like, I need a dress or a blouse or, pair of pants or a skirt, whatever. So you're like, I need this. I'm going to this function. It's happening in 3 days. Like, you got to get it.
Yes.
And if you're anything like my lovely wife, she walks in and I'm like, can we just find some help? She's like, no, I got this. And she starts walking around, and eventually a salesperson walks over and says, hi, can I help you? And my wife, every time, same thing. Nope, just looking. Nothing, nope, don't need you. And then she goes back to taking an hour to find the one thing that somebody else could have found her in 3 or 4 minutes. And it's why I don't shop with my wife. So understand, they're not expecting your call. Hey, I know you're not expecting my call, but you recently took the time to fill out this form, right? Just wanted to make sure as a local representative, you got the information you needed, right? Understand that they're not in that modality. I'm trying to bring back to it. And every online shopper is just like Deanna or my wife, and even times myself when I walk into a store and I'm like, I just want to peruse, and a salesperson walks up and says, can I help? We're like, nope, I'm just looking. So don't buy into the smoke screen. Wonderful. I just want you to know we're representing a lot of buyers right now that are looking in your area. And if you guys have had any thoughts, we would love to have that conversation with you. Maybe we do an off-market transaction. Careful with saying that depending on what state you're in, but you know what I'm saying. Like, just acknowledge they're not waiting for you to call. So if you just keep that in mind, you follow up. There's the funny old phrase, I don't like it. Like they say, buy or die. Like, no, how about just follow up until they transact, because they're going to transact. And if you do the follow-up, you're going to win. Long answer to your question, but hopefully you found that helpful.
No, super helpful. And I think that's a key thing is I sometimes, when I've done coaching with our own network of agents, is we have to take our agent hat off sometimes and think about ourselves as a consumer. Right. We as consumers don't like to be sold to.
No.
We want to talk to, we want a relationship. So sometimes take that agent hat off and think about the last time you bought something, whether it was a good or bad experience. And if it was a bad experience, why? And are you doing that today? Are you somebody who's totally coming out. Like, why do car salesmen have such a bad name? It's because they're so aggressive. You step one foot on the car lot and they've attacked you. They didn't learn about you. They didn't make a
Right.
friend. And
Right.
so I think a lot of it is just that, like everything you said was just remember that you're a consumer too, and consumers
Right.
don't like it. We don't, to your example of the store, I don't like being in that store where the salesperson is following me around, act like, oh, can I get you that? Can I get you this? Like, I want to shop at my own time. I want to know you're there.
Right.
Tell me what you can offer me, why you're more valuable than me shopping on my own, but let me do it by myself, and then I'll reach out if I need help. But you need to offer the value that you bring to me first.
100%. 100%. Great insight and validating for sure.
Yeah.
So what other questions? I do want to remind everybody, if you look at my Instagram, I think I asked this seller 7 times for the appointment before the person said yes. And it was never, Deanna, anything more than, gosh, well, it just sounds like you should invite me over just to take a preview, look at the house, like I'd love to just check it. It was just very just soft, but I just kept, I'd answer a few more questions. We would dance a little bit and then I'd go back to it and say, really sounds like you should have me over. And like on the 7th one, he was finally like, okay. My son was like this. Couldn't believe that I would just stay in the game politely, because I know what the guy wants. He in this case, he wanted to sell his duplex for 1.5 million, and I knew we can get the job done. So I kept asking, because if I didn't, someone else was going to, and they were going to get the appointment.
Yeah, no, that's great. And it's along the lines of, we had a question come in from Rita, who's on the call, who said, when you're just outbounding people, how many times do you repeat the contact? Like, how many times should you try to outbound and reach somebody today?
So Rita, do you know the double tap where you call and then you hang up and then you call back again? That's the first thing I would do. I would try the double tap. So it's all it means is ready. It's like, think about like your phone rings once and then it doesn't ring again. And then it rings a second time, instantly creates curiosity. They're more likely to answer the phone. But understand this, the data actually shows about 23% of the people answer the phone when you call. The data also shows that upwards of 85% of the people will respond to a text message in under 5 minutes. So I do want to call, but I also want to text. I also want to send them a personal email, and I might also want to DM them on their favorite social channel. So the key is, again, play the modality game. I want to get you wherever you're most comfortable. But I will tell you this, my client, Maxine Gallant, so I mentioned, 86, she's such a rock star. When texting became a thing, going back to like, let's call it 2007, I was like, Maxine, you just got to text with people. So she would text, they would respond, she would call. And I'm like, no. Because did they answer? She's like, no, I would text them. They would text me back. And then I'd say, oh, they're ready. So she'd call, they wouldn't answer. And then she'd text and say, I just called. They're like, yeah, what's up? What do you want? So also remember, wherever you get them, stay in that modality. You can book appointments via text. You can book appointments absolutely DMing on any one of your favorite social channels. And you can do the same thing on email as you can do over the phone. So the key is, Rita, don't play a singular focus. Play every one of the modalities: social, DMs, text, email, phone call. Make sense?
And I love that too, because the other thing I've heard, I've been with Sold.com for nearly 6 years, but I've been in this space at some of the biggest companies, Boomtown and Zillow. And one of the things I've heard from the most successful agents is that their consumers tell them that they worked with them because they saw them everywhere, or at least it felt like they saw them everywhere.
Bingo. Yep.
So get in front of them on all different spaces. So another question. So this is coming from Kyle on our call. And so he's kind of trying to understand time management. How much time should he be spending on systems and training versus selling on a daily or weekly basis?
So I would need more context of systems and training. I don't know if that means he's an agent, team leader, or a broker, or if he's a brand new agent just getting trained. I'm going to tell you that, Kyle, no matter where you are, the number one thing is revenue solves everything. And revenue only comes from one thing: going on appointments and getting signed contracts. Now, that is the game. New agents fail at 87% plus in this industry, and they don't leave the industry because they made too much money. They leave the industry because they did not earn the money for the time. So what I would tell you is, you got 56 days between now and the end of the year. you should be spending 2 to 3 hours a day sending text messages to people in your phone, sending emails to everybody inside your database, making phone calls. If you're like, I only have like 100 people, I'm going to burn through them fast. Great. Then I would say to you, can you hold open houses 7 days a week? It's a good idea. Can you do knocking on doors around recent sales saying, did you hear about your neighbor? My point to you, Kyle, is this, again, not having the full clear picture of where you stand today. I want you to win. And in this game, the only way you win is full contact. You got to talk to a lot of people. You got to kiss a lot of frogs to figure out who wants to buy and sell and who wants to do it with you. So I guess the simple answer is train all the time, prospect and market all the time, and work on your systems. Once you have a couple of deals going, it'll be time. Outside of that, the reality is every checklist could be Googled. Every system could be reimagined. You can go to ChatGPT and say, act like Tom Ferry and build me the best checklist for a listing launch, the best checklist for opening an escrow. Everything's available in real time now, my friend. You don't have to spend a lot of time there. You got to ask ChatGPT, get 90% of it, customize it to your market, and you're off to the races. All the money is in marketing, prospecting, following up, booking appointments. If you're not doing those 4 things, you're not going to make it.
Yeah, one question I know that's a constant theme for people when they think about online leads is the fear of investment into it, just because you said earlier, the lead is bad. One thing that Jeff Mays has said a lot in his last 2 webinars that he hosted with us was leads get better when you do. And I love that. I say it on repeat now. And so what do you say to people that are either have spent money on leads before and it hasn't been successful, or haven't yet because they have been nervous about the tainted feeling of online leads?
So I probably have a very biased answer here in that I built a sub $100 million business essentially off Facebook and YouTube. So like it is the way that I built my business. Really, I would say starting in 2011, when you could really start advertising online. And I was very comfortable with generate 100 inquiries and bring in 3 or 4 clients back in the day. Today it's bringing, 100 inquiries and end up with like 30 or 40 clients. The better we get, the better the leads get. So I guess I'd go back to the earlier question for everybody listening. You got to add 2 to 3 listing attraction sources if you want to be very successful in 2025. If your database is small, you've got to supplement it somehow. If you supplement it with something like Sold, it's going to be lower cost than Zillow. It's going to be lower cost than, realtor.com. And I'm fans of all those. Like they're all friends. Like I'm not saying any of them are bad. They're just Sold is more reasonably cost. I would probably go Sold in order. Then I would do Google. And then I might do Instagram, like polls. Had any thoughts of selling in 2025? Yes, no, right? Answer the questionnaire. Hey, if I could sell my home for X, I would sell in 2025. And I do an Instagram poll on that. It's wildly successful and costs you next to nothing. The problem is you only have 300 people that are following you on Instagram. So you're only going to generate 4 or 5 leads, and you can't do it over and over again. You got to find something that's repeatable. Sold.com, Google as an example, being 2 of the lower cost. Google does generate a lot of buy-side leads. So I'd be mindful of that. I don't know. I guess, Deanna, I've just watched way too many people build extraordinary businesses with incredible pipelines from lower cost sort of arbitrage of online leads. But I will say this to you: if it's not right for you, it's not right for you. Like if it's not your jam to follow up and to be a little disciplined to make the real money, then don't do it, because it's not the leads, it's you.
Yeah.
It's your psychology. Just don't do it.
Yeah, I've said that a lot throughout my career is you have to be, number one, you have to have the right expectations. If you're expecting that every single person that clicks on, no matter what site you're on, the Zillows, the Realtors, the Homes, the Sold.coms, that they are ready to go right now, online leads are not for you. You are going to crash and burn with them every single time. But if you can be somebody who comes on, understands that some of these people you're going to get lucky on, and they're going to be ready to go right now, but that is pure luck. Most of these people are going to be at the early stages, especially when it comes to a seller style lead. Some of your actual analytics matched up really well with what we do. And we're top of funnel sellers. You kind of had a version of this on your screen before, but Traditionally, we're generating find out what your house is worth leads, as well as get a cash offer on your property. Some agents get really nervous about the get cash offer type of lead because they're thinking, well, you're putting me in competition with somebody else. And as we've learned, number one, these cash offer companies should be in your toolkit. However you want to look at that, you guys should be a one-stop shop for every single person. Be there and as an advisor to people, because the reality is most people don't wind up going with a cash offer anyway, just based off of what that net amount comes out to. But
Deanna, I've seen Zillow's numbers, Open Doors numbers. My personal client, Paul Rushforth, who's the #1 team in Ottawa, Ontario, Canada. It's 1 out of 300.
yes,
So it's 299 seller leads and one that was like, I'd like a cash offer. And if you go to my YouTube channel and you type in Paul Rushforth, you'll actually see how in his now 18 years, he's bought 4 houses and he has been doing cash offers, right, for, I don't know, 16, 17 years. So you're spot on. All it does is it's the sort of, oh, that looks easy. That looks like I can, okay, cool. I'm going to click on that. So it's 1 out of 300 and that's 299 seller leads for you. I look at that as a huge opportunity. Anyway,
it's the lowest funnel type of seller lead that you can potentially get outside of somebody screaming at you, I need to sell my house right away. They're not hiding behind, I just want to find out what my house is worth. They are saying, I want to get a cash offer. So for sold.com stats specifically, we find that about 10% of the clients that we interact with that are requesting a home valuation go to market within 12 months. But traditional cycle is about 18 to 36 months. We're very forthcoming with this. So whether you're actively advertising with sold.com today or you've been thinking about it, we're telling you what it is. So the most frustrating thing for us is when we get the complaints really 2 weeks into their advertising that they haven't had a listing yet. As crazy as it sounds, we hear it constantly. So we're very, very transparent with it. But a cash offer, 22% we find of those clients that requested a cash offer wound up going to market with the traditional agent within 12 months. And so traditional timeline is about 6 to 18 months. So they're great leads to work with. One of the things that you talked about earlier with Revaluate is within the sold.com dashboard for every single agent, they can see how many leads we generate in their area, how many of them went to them. So in this example, we generated 4,600 leads, 3,600 went to this agent, 2,300 are still active. This number down here is 355 of those leads that we gave them went on to list with another agent.
Yep.
The reason I have this specific example is because just last week, this agent reached out to me and said, I don't know what's going on with sold.com, but nothing is converted. I'm showing a less than 20 people that you've given me have gone on to list their property. And I pulled this up and we went through 58 of those 355 just to QC it and show him that, look, these people went on to list and sell with other people. And it totally changed his mindset. And he's like, it's me. I need to change what I'm doing. So it's so valuable to understand that he lost $4.3 million in commissions based off of the average home prices. Obviously, we don't expect that everyone is going to win all of this, right? We understand that people may have had another agent that they wanted to work with. Maybe it just wasn't the right match because not everybody always is. But there's so much opportunity that he had been on with us for 2 years. And he said he hasn't closed one thing. And it was because sold.com leads weren't good. And so this was an amazing way for us to have a conversation, but also he gave us enough time where he wasn't reaching out to us 2 weeks in. He knew that after 18 months, something should have converted. And he was right. They did. They just didn't work with him.
Yep.
And so now we're better working with him on helping him align there. So
this goes back to the same thing. 4 follow-up conversations. 4 follow-up conversations. So Deanna, I have to go get on an airplane and fly to San Jose. I've got an event tomorrow. So I know you've got a few more things you need to share, but I've got to bounce. If I may, though, I want to give you guys my number. Write down really fast, 1-800-624-9575, 1-800-624-9575. If we can be of assistance for you in 2025, that's my office line. Call and say, are you doing an event in my area? Tell me about how you guys are working with these 15,000 extraordinary agents and teams from all over the world. If that would be of interest, reach out, have a conversation, or go to tomferry.com. But we should definitely do something together in 2025. So, Deanna, I got to race. Otherwise, I'm going to miss a flight, and that would be very bad. So, thank
No, I
you.
appreciate it. I
Yeah.
appreciate your time today. Safe travels to you. Your team negotiated a great promo for sold.com. So I'll be sharing that with everybody right now.
Take advantage of it. Take advantage of it. All right, everybody, you got 56 days. Get to work. Take advantage of this. See you, Deanna.
Thanks, Tom. And so, yes, Tom and his team negotiated some great deals for you guys. So if you guys have been with sold.com for a while, you guys have known what our pricing looks like for this event exclusively. We are offering $50 at codes. And when you buy 3, you get 1 for free. So if you are already advertising with us, this is the lowest price that you've ever seen for sold.com zip codes. If you are not advertising with us, this is also the lowest price that you've ever seen for sold.com zip codes. Like Tom said, there's lots of advertising platforms out there. Sold.com happens to be the most cost-effective way to do it. And so what this does in our network is it makes it so that when a lead comes in and you sponsor a zip code, you are getting the first opportunity to claim the appointment that our concierge team sets. On top of that, when the lead comes in, it's going to go to our concierge team, but it's also going to go to you so that you can start your outbound outreach with it. So that is a huge benefit. So if you are on this call and you've heard Tom say that you've got to get in front of more people, whether it be your own sphere, whether you are starting to door knock or you are starting to supplement it through sold.com, you have to get yourself out there, and sold.com is exclusively seller leads. This is the way to get in front of more people at a very, very inexpensive cost. And so take advantage of that pricing. It does expire end of day tomorrow. So again, that is a $50 at codes. Plus when you buy 3, you are automatically getting 1 for free. Couple other benefits that come with this is not only a priority to appointments that we set, but 2 is if we give you a lead that does not have an appointment on it, you wind up listing and closing that client without the assistance of our concierge team, we will completely waive the referral fee. So that is something that actually we changed of January of this year. A lot of people still aren't aware of it. A lot of people are closing our leads and still paying a referral fee every single time. So if you guys are closing our leads and you don't sponsor a zip code, you can actually be saving yourself quite a bit of money by sponsoring, because if we give you that lead and our concierge does not set up the appointment, when you are the sponsor, we completely eliminate that referral fee. So how can you take advantage of this promo? I had a pop-up come up on your screen. You can click on that, fill out that information. I'm also adding it to the chat as well so that you guys can have that in there for any additional ways to fill out that form. Again, this is a great way to start your 2025. Remember expectations. Remember that our team is here to help you. Join our webinars that we host monthly with a Tom Ferry coach, because it's a great way to invest in yourself, but keep dedicating yourself to it. Don't give up, right? That's the one thing that if you've been on every single call that we've had with a coach, or you've just listened to this one, you have to commit to what you're doing. And I can promise you, you will see success. That's all it takes. Commit to calling people back multiple times. Devote time manage to people, but also don't get so stuck in, I want this person to sell their house. Build a relationship with them, understand expectations and timelines. So reach out if you guys have any additional questions. I'm going to also input my personal email address because I have some customer service messages coming up with some people. So if you guys have any one-off questions, you're welcome to reach out to me directly, and I'm happy to answer any of those questions. But if it is about zip codes and purchasing them, use that form that I've popped up on the screen. But for anybody who's had those one-off questions that they've sent directly to me, you can send me an email and I'll do my best to help you guys out. But we are here to help. We are here to help you guys have 2025 be your best year yet, especially when it comes to more listings. I appreciate everybody's time. Look out for more of our webinars with other Tom Ferry coaches. And I hope you guys have a great holiday season. I hope that you guys have a great rest of your week. And don't give up. Commit to what you guys can do, right? We saw what he talked about with his uncle. It just takes commitment. That really is. Everybody has the potential to be great in this industry. And it just really takes just committing to what you're doing, reaching out for help with the sold.com team, interacting on these different events, and we can all help you guys get there. And I would love to hear everybody's success stories. But thank you guys again. I look forward to reaching out and talking to each and every one of you guys through our different webinars. We are going to be sending out a recording of this webinar afterwards. And if there's any questions we didn't get to, please reach out to our team or fill out that form before this promo expires end of day tomorrow. Thanks, everybody. Have a good rest of your day. Bye-bye.